Hi all, Randi Green here. Let's round up the ideas behind the awakening and activation process as well as some of the future timeline work. And I'm here combining there are two courses I've got out there that will come, the future timeline work as well as the awakening and activation processes, where I have gone more in details as well as here with the levels of what does it mean to activate, what does it mean to awaken, and what is the future timeline work. So when we talk about the different steps that we have gone through, you can see it's a step ladder process, hence my materials build up the same way. So we first go through the awakening process, then we go into the activation process, and then we awaken into the future and the timeline work and what is needed and how we implement that into everyday life. The purpose of all of this has not to been sitting under the Bodhi tree and meditate our lives away. At least that's not the fifth cycle approach. It might be the fourth cycle, especially if you belong to a lineage that needs to die out. And I'm here putting out a claim that those who are part of the old lineages, that before we went into the first steps of the new age that began with the year zero, then we had all of the old lineages that chose to finalize their existence inside this reality, coming forth with this high level final teachers such as the Buddha and others. We can debate whether or not they have been real, but the whole point was it was a giving over, as I've experienced with a lot of the groups that have taken off now as part of the fourth dimension. It's a giving over. You give the knowledge, you give the sciences. This is how you get out of here. This is how you liberate yourself from the enclosure. This is how you get out of the contracts. This is how you get out of the enslavement programs, and this is what you need to do. And this is how you need to change your configuration so that you can, when at the time of death, when the time is right, you can leave this reality field, aka Nibbana. So this is how to get out of here, card teachings. And then there's of course been the teachings for the ones who wanted to continue to stay here and what they needed to do as part of the next step of the transition into this day and age where we are now. And that's why some say, well, I've stuck around to be born into this age so I could complete my cycles at this age, and by that shut down the different timelines and the different projects that I have been part of, hence also why I'm here. Not that it went as I expected when I got back in here in 1959, not at all. Things went in a different manner. But that doesn't take away the work that we can do and make the most of what is possible. Quite a lot of you that decided to stay the last time we had the Great Transition, which came in some 2,500 years ago. There were other teachers. The Buddha was not the only one. There were other teachers. They have just not been remembered to the same degree. But quite a lot decided to stay to be reborn into these cycles, and they definitely had a different expectation of what the skill sets they would have, what they would be reborn with, the understanding that they would remember, that this would be the cycle of remembering, that they would be born into families that would allow them to remember. And the ones that were supposed to support that was, of course, the different councils, and the colonizers had made the promise with their higher councils that at this day and age that we're in now, they would have completed their projects and they would take off and leave it to us. What the councils, of course, did not anticipate was that these regress races, they prolonged and prolonged and prolonged and relooped and relooped and relooped, that kept setting us back in time, so that our energy fields was constantly pushed backwards and backwards and backwards until it got so far backwards that the Dark Ones got a foothold again into the society, into this enclosure, first in the Middle Ages, where the 7 layers beneath our feet got a stronghold, which they got under control by the astral barrier and the Enlightenment. And then, of course, in this day and age, where the Ananthians did whatever they could to push us into their version of the fifth cycle, which began in 2001 with the big kaboom, as we know, in September 11th. So we are here understanding that whatever we're here to do as part of our quote-unquote mission statement, as part of what we expected to happen, as part of what we expected what would happen, as the agreements that were made, none of this has been kept. So we are here waking up very confused as in, okay, this was not supposed to happen this way, and why all of these things that we've got, and where are my capacities, where the knowledge I should have, and then we go in and look in what we prepared for and what we should have at our availability, and then we just see, well, it's distorted, it's dysfunctional, whatever it is. So that's part of the awakening into the mission statements, to see, wow, here the energy work ability and the ability to clean timelines and to understand what these different processes all about really comes in play, as in, okay, how do I really do this? How do I actually clear out my fields, so I reconnect to the original timelines I was supposed to work on, so I could clear out my past actions, so I could clear out the projects I used to be part of? And that's where all the shenanigans come in, to prevent us from actually doing so, because if we could do so, then we can shut down these reality fields. And the artificial fourth dimensional races are of course not interested in that, because they live and thrive off what they have got their little hands on, as part of the choices that quite a lot of people choose to do. And those who choose to stay for doing the transition, they were supposed to do it within the mammal-human realms and not within the insectoid-avian realms, which they are now doing due to the re-engineering modification of their holographic energetic fields, including the different types of seals that have been put on that were not there originally, and a lot of shenanigans. So I'm just saying that when we do this process and we think, I should be able to do this so much more, why is that not happening? And we look around the world and say, hey, this is not how it's supposed to be at this time and age. What's going on here? Then we understand, okay, that's because it was hijacked one more time. This cycle was hijacked again, as it has been hijacked so many times before. It's been relooped, it's been drained. A lot of insectoids have come in that doesn't belong here. The military projects of the fifth cycle, Atlantean projects, they got a lot of new people coming in the 50s. And I'm here talking about insectoid and avian people. And they allowed them in, and by that change our reality field so that they would have control, because the fifth cycle controls the fourth. And in that thinking that they would have this under control. Anyways, just leading up to the connection to the parallel universal matrix. And in that losing their control mechanisms. And then they aligned themselves with the Orions, which we saw in 2017. Since we had been pushed so far back that scheme began to appear inside our reality field dynamics, and they align with that because they have a lot of fancy technology. But what they didn't get was that the Orions are absolutely not to be trusted. And wherever they make alliances, they always end up in wars where they consume the entire reality field, because that's part of the eighth dimension, and they are in dire need of energy because they are literally the eighth dimensional collectives. All of them are completely falling and are now being linked so closely up to the abyss that they need whatever they can to keep themselves alive, including running mostly on technology and all sorts of weird insectoid critters that we barely can call any form of civilization anymore. Anyways, they do have their front men and persons that come and look as if they're still humanoids, but these are anyways, I don't want to go further into this, because this is, again, what we know is good to know, but it's not about really getting in there and giving it energy. This is some of the things I said, that's not what I want to do. And that's also why I want to say here, as I just said recently to some of my students, that when we talk about the females and their emotional field in the 8th and the 9th ring, for those of you, yes, the 8th ring are the 8th dimension, the 9th ring is the 9th dimension of the emotional field that should be able to vibrate up to that. These fields have deliberately been shut off. That's why all the teaching systems are only focusing on dimension 1 to 7. That goes with the Pillar Project 1 to 7 and the administration of our fields and what is needed within the first 7 dimensions of our reality field. And that suffices, because there's nothing to gain in the 8th. And yes, the 9th is the Andromedan. And yes, that is where the infusions come in. But unless you know how to deal with the 8th, because you have gone through all of the other stuff and you have, you are forced into the 8th because you have timeline connections, as I had, then I would suggest don't look up things you don't naturally have as an imperative or a pull from within to look at. And if you say, well, I do have a pull to look at the 8th. Okay, are you seeing entities from there? Are you seeing past lives from there? Are you seeing yourself in some kind of envisioning yourself there? Then remind remind yourself, this could be interception technologies that could be put into your field artificially. It doesn't have to be yours. It could just be to get you on the hook. So what you look at will look back at you, and then you get entangled. So for as I am saying, in this case, I cannot tell you what to do, but there are, again, it is wise to know what to look at, what not to look at, what to engage with and what not to engage with, what to do and what not to do. It's not about being a completionist. It is about being wise in our choices so that we will make this. So there are, as we have now completed the 3-9 pillar that is completed this year, we also realizes that we did not live up to the requirements. We did not get the full scheme of what we were supposed to. We did not clear the timelines as it was supposed to. We are now in a completely different reality setting where our original mission statements do not really cover what's going on. And for me, that means that I am taking down all of my technology I brought with me as part of what I was supposed to do here. I can see so much of it has been distorted. The code streams are not working well. And I'm here talking about the code streams that comes into my field via the cube technology I brought with me. So I'm taking down these cubes, dissolving these timelines. The code configuration I have is not living up to the requirements that I wanted it to because it was aligned with a different type of reality configuration. I trained in the Pleiadian system for a different type of reality configuration how it appeared at the time. At the time, we did not see the Atlantean projects and what they were doing. We did not see the military project. We did not see what happened in the 1950s. So in all ways and forms, we were taking with our pants down. And I think that's important when we talk about the timeline work, because that's what the awakening and the activation should lead to. Timeline work, that is where we really begin to understand that when we talk about true sciences of the expanded awareness, that is where we align with different levels of a reality field through the timelines, aka the code streams, that activates different types of properties and abilities and capacities in our higher order holographic energetic architecture, from where we can pull in different types of consciousness potentials, from where we can learn to work with reality in a specific way. So we are awakening to do collective work. Collective work is not just about loving each other. It's not the hippie movement people here. That was in the 60s and 70s, and that was part of, again, as I talk about, if a civilization is beginning to wake up, well, if they go through all the right stages, well, there's always one that shuts every civilization down, and that is promiscuity and different forms of desire-driven needs, whatever that means, whatever it is, drugs, sex, alcohol, food, sugar, whatever it is, whatever drives you, gives you craving, will shut down the liberation process. And that's also already taught back in some of the old Theravada Buddhist teachings, the Theravada teachings, or already experienced in what we call proto-Buddhism, and in some of the explorers that long before either of these religious or spiritual teaching systems came in play, that goes back to Atlantis, as this is how we avoid being connected to the 7 layers beneath our feet. That is that we are in the ability of working with our desire energies. We are in the ability to clear out our desire energies, our cravings, our thirst for certain things. Just to remind you, when we talk about the desires that we have, they are part of the emotional field. And the desires can be all from the longing and yearning for happiness, that when that's not achieved leads to frustration, or any forms of kind of physical thing we can intake that we then think that will make us feel better, or it's a kind of escapism. We escape from reality for a short period of time just to discover that whatever we did there, whether it's alcohol or something else, just led to a side effect that either killed some brain cells or gave a different configuration or tied us up to different timelines that are connected to previous stages of the Earth civilization. And when we talk about these previous civilizations, we are talking about what went wrong in Atlantis, what went wrong in Mu, what went wrong in Lemuria, and especially Mu, that little intercepted. We had the high culture in Lemuria, that's a whole other story I will not go into here. But some of the reasons why that fell was because most of the civilizations that were part of that project, they took off, they left, and with that collapsed that. And then the entire civilization on a planet went into a severe regression, which we call Mu. And that Mu is technically the foundation of Neanderthals and what have you. And not that they were primitive, they just didn't have much mental capacity. They had literally regressed to a physical form that were living primarily out of the instinctual level. And then the whole upgrading of civilization that again were part of a long process that led to, again, the different cycles leading to the high level culture in the fifth cycle that led to the fall, again, due to the wrongful use of technology and selfish purposes and highly infused kind of distorted genetics from three lineages that were still lingering on and onward and so forth. And then the whole collapse of that one, and then the reseeding into the fourth that became our foundation of the Holocene, our culture that began some 12,000 years ago, more or less, give or take, under the colonizing species. That has now been our quote-unquote cycle to fulfill the fourth cycle teachings, but not the ones that they were agreed on, not the original ones that were part of the fourth cycle reseeding. These teachings are the foundation of all of the teachings we have today, but they have been manipulated, they've been downgraded, they've been distorted, they have been cut in pieces, they are not as they're supposed to. So each one of us that does this, we must find the complete sequence of these teachings within ourselves, filling out the gaps by our own observation, by our own inner work, by our own clearing work, and by our own remembering of how things were supposed to be. And then just to be led into this complete frustration to discover that the world is nothing as it was supposed to. We're not even near where we are supposed to be. And hence all of the different fields that had a certain amount of viability rate are now collapsing due to misuse and to abuse and to the relooping and due to the different types of projects and the wrongful type of genetics that are now no longer in alignment with this reality field as it's supposed to be, the high level of insectoid and avian genetics that are now found that for a long period led to the possibility of the event program, the new reality programs that were supported by the parallel universal matrix, which then collapsed because it's unnatural to this reality field, create a lot of distortions. They shut all of that down during the pandemic with the different painting blues and what have you, the crisscrossing on the sky, targeting a specific group within the civilization that would take away certain different types of genetics, which they thought if they took away some of the older versions of the old world order civilization, part of human civilization that were part of the original fourth cycle or part of the later fourth cycle, then they would have the reality field to themselves, talking about how we were to protect the environment and on and so forth, and creating these different forms of false flags and what have you, blah, 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 blah. It just goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And that's part of the awakening process. And that's why once we have seen this again and again and again and again, we no longer get distraught by it. We just get, oh yeah, another level of, and yes, we can fall in the trap and begin to moan about it and blah, blah, blah. But point being is, it doesn't change anything because this is going on and will continue to going on because things are literally out of whack. So our job here is now to control the desire mechanisms and the aggression mechanisms and the seeking of power mechanisms and all of these wrongful uses of energies that either leads to the timelines that are connected to the past that are now all being pushed into past Earth. And all of these old timelines, including all of their underworld pockets and underworld forces and underworld shells and underworld entities and underworld whatever stuck down there, real, holographic, organic, non-organic, energetic, parasitic, whatever it is, all being pushed into old Earth. And that's why those of us who are now on transition Earth, we must really be observant of administering our three lower fields to the degrees that we in no way come in contact, or if we do come in contact with these energies, then we will as quickly as possible clear ourselves out of all connection points so there will be no access point to our fields from these old grid structures. And that is enormously important because the 2-8 pillar, once that runs, it will run only on old Earth. What is now being done on transition Earth that we are on, we have 3 main organic fields. We have old, transition, and future. They are organically driven and are driven to the understanding and the perception of being a life form. So your life form on either past Earth, where your perception will be all about business as usual, and it will be connected to the fault grids and the old grids and the contaminated grids and all of the ones with the low viability rate. Transition Earth, as those of us who have the awareness and the capacity for it, we will perceive reality through the input that we will get from the code streams that are now being infused with energies from the Andromedan system and other systems that are working in alignment and alliance with these future Andromedans. It is not the M31. It is not the past Andromedan civilizations. They are long gone. They have shifted into this future version. We have the future humanities that are there as well. These future humanities grew out of the fallen timelines of past Earth, went to the future, realized what they'd done wrong, traveled back. They've been part of the attempt to create transition Earth. On transition Earth, those of us who are here now, we are in this expedited process of realizing that whatever our mission statement is no longer add up. Whatever we thought reality is no longer what we thought it is. Whatever we thought we were here to do is no longer. Is this extra layer of waking up? Not only did we have to wake up out of the shenanigans and the enslavement and liberate ourselves from all of these programs and the artificial timelines and all the things that were going on, the different procedures done by the colonizing species and onward and so forth, and get into, okay, we're actually here. We're supposed to transform this reality into its original configuration. And we have to, because the sun is shutting down. The technologies that upheld the reconfiguration under the colonizing species had a time limit. They had to go to the completion. You can't take an entire reality field, reconfigure it with different forms of technology, and then expect it to run forever. No, it will deplete the reality field. And once that happens, then the original technology, as I describe in the whole philosophy book, will kick in and say, now it's time to push the red button and reset everything to default. And that's what's happening now. But transition Earth is this kind of intermediary field. Again, it's very similar to the restoration program that we built after the timeline event, where we then made adaptations to the original technology. And we got the allowance to prolong it for a while. Hence, later on, the others got the allowance as well. Because if you argue, and you argue well in the councils, you get the allowance to do so, even though that it might be detrimental. But that's because everybody thinks we got this, we can clear this, we can fix this, and we use technology, wrongful use of technology, not looking into the level of distortion and energetic parasitic entities and the whole regression dynamics and what have you. And you can say, well, why do the councils allow for that? Because there's always a probability and possibility. You can't really say what the outcome is. It runs on percentage of, or success rate, so to speak. So it's an estimate. And the estimates for if the colonizing species, the insectoids, the avians, and the different groups that were here under the Dracos, if they have kept their word, if they had done what they said they would in the councils, we would all be activated now, and we would have learned to live in a joint field and learned to live together. But instead, because of the Atlantean projects and because of the military projects and their greed and their dark infusions and what have you, and these ill-minded lineages that were still running their scheme inside of reality, they invited in other groups that had no interest in the human reconfiguration in our awakening process. They came here to take it over, a new type of colonization. So, okay, so we kind of understand that's part of the awakening process, to realize these things too, and then we take our time. And I've definitely had my different phases of crying and moaning and anger and feeling victimized and then go in the other polarity, and all of these different things that we need to go through the full spectrum of emotionality in regards to reality as it actually is, just to come out at the other end having played out all of these different energies and transformed them and acknowledged them and integrated them in their higher level of transformation, which we can say is part of the collective human history of acknowledging what was done to us, and then come to some kind of understanding. I'm not saying acceptance, you won't hear me accept anything, but because it's illegal in all ways and forms. It's unfair, and I can always stir up anger when it comes to that. But I also know that anger is not conducive. It doesn't lead to anything. On the contrary, it shuts down my heart field, and it pushes me to easier be connected to the past timelines where there was a lot of anger and a lot of wars and a lot of things were going on. So that's not conducive. Is kindness conducive? No, because then I just float away in all the insectoid thought form systems of samadhi and happiness, and just sitting there in this is a kind of a higher level of desire energy when you go into this whole blissful state where you sit in this samadhi, where you just feel, oh, everything's so nice and calm and tranquility and what have you, and you just float away in all of that kind of, it's a serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin kind of kick configuration that you achieve there. And that's good to calm down the anger energies and to balance your heart field and get into where you self-nurture yourself and bathe your body in these energies. And then you go up in your head and say, okay, snap out of it. What do I need to do now? Now I got out of the underworld energies by going into samadhi. Now I begin to do vipassana, where I would use the wisdom to, okay, what is now needed? What is it that we need to do now? And I know this is not what the Theravada teaches, because the original teachings of the Buddha was to get out of this system and not continue. The Nibbana was you shut everything down, and you ensure, as we see it in certain communities now that are doing the practice today, you wither away, you take away all the levels that you are, and you literally go into this very, very long process of not only clearing out everything that's connected, but you also eventually clear out the biofield and the emotional field and the mental field. You shut everything down so that when you are ready to go, everything that you are will cease to exist on all levels of reality. And that was what the Buddha was taught to do with his lineage. That's when a lineage closes down. That's that practice. But for those of us who are not on the closing down of our lineage, well, we are then looking at, okay, we are on transition earth. And one of the things that we can say with the new reality dynamics, we are in an intermediary system that will be the key point of transition earth. Transition earth run by 5 different types of perception timelines, which I've talked about here. We have the past earth and all these things. We put it there. We will eventually stop looking at that. Then we can say, what are the 5 timelines that we have inside this reality field, aside from the military projects, which we will not look into. Those of us who are not part of it. Those of you who are, you will have to figure that one out on your own, because I'm not going there. I'm not going into these projects. It has allured me many, many times. The closest thing I come to that is in my book, Modern History, but I really don't feel the need to go into and align with that anymore, because that's part of the Metatonic Councils now, and I don't feel to go into the Falling Angelic teachings. They have their own groups, they have their own teachings, they are rebranding different forms of teachings that are connected to the 5th cycle, and they will do whatever they will do because they've already done it. You see, the future civilizations of humanity, they come from these projects, but they were different in the original, the first run through, and then they travel back in time in 2 groups, the one that were pro the awakening, the other one against. Anyways, so all of these, I don't want to go there, so I'm just saying, and you'll say, oh, I really want to know, and I'm saying, no, thank you, I'm making a choice here. I don't want to go there, I don't want to have anything with it, I am pushing it away and washing my hands and turning the other cheek. Enough of these shenanigans. Every time I come in contact with it, all it does is it creates a dark configuration in my system. And I am so tired of cleaning that out. So enough with that. So what we can look into is the advanced human civilizations of the future and what they are trying to do here, as well as what we could say the original elevation cycles of what they are trying to do here. And yes, you have the parallel universal matrices that are still here as part of the hybrid groups. I will probably assist parents to some of these hybrid children to some degree, or I will look into the future parenting of the ones that are part of the future human civilizations. Altogether, at some point, also putting my foot down and say, I'm no longer looking into the artificial force. I'm no longer looking into the hybrids. I know what this is about. I'm done there. I don't want to have anything to do with it. And I'm completely shutting the door to all of the colonizing species and all of their shenanigans, because I am now choosing on all levels of my being to either work with the future humanities that are working to get us back into the original elevation cycles, or the Andromedans from the future that are working to align our galactic core with theirs, so we can become the sister system of progression dynamics as it originally was intended to. And that's why I came back, to clean out so that was possible. So that also means that once we make this decision, we are then getting into the reconfiguration of our mission statement. It takes that determination, and that determination can only be done because you know what you're choosing. I know completely what I don't want to be part of. So I can choose with my heart and with my mind and with all of my feels, and my consciousness potentials are backing me in that one. My original feels are saying, yes, this is where you need to go. And then that full alignment will happen with these code streams and timelines where we truly belong. So it's not done by wishful thinking. And I had a student that asked me, how do we know this? How do we know when we are on the transition earth? And I will say there are many different stages, that there are pockets of opportunities that you will, by your energy work and via your mindfulness practice, all the things I've said here, you will be allowed, quote unquote, allowed into these pockets where you will then show if you can administer your fields and administer the energies that are being provided to you. What do you do with that infusion? What do you do with it? What kind of project do you put it into? And for this is where, again, we need to learn to adapt in a different manner. It's not just about saying, oh, I want to make a strategy. I talk about some of the things in the Changemaker as well. And in the future timeline work, I have put in the whole 2025 Forerunner course there as part of the future timeline work, because I already explained these dynamics there. So no need to repeat myself. But the most important thing here is that when we wake up in the morning, we get the idea of what we need to do today. And then we do what we need to do today. What we wake up with, this is what you need to do today. You will do it today. You will make it happen today. It's not about tomorrow, whatever, because tomorrow is another day. So each day we must work with the energies that are being provided. Each day we wake up with, today I need to do this and this and this and this and this. And then we arrange our lives to do this and this and this and this and this. And not one bit is missed. Because the energies that are coming in are pushing us to go into flow states. They are pushing us to be more efficient. They are pushing us to use our capacities in an energetic, productive way that supports the transformational processes of transition earth, that supports the inbuilding of the new configuration from future humanity to the Andromedan system, that supports the energy circulation of these timelines, aka code streams, that are then imbued into our holographic energetic architecture. And our three lower fields transforms this and translates this into activity in our everyday business, whether it is just doing the accounting, or it is cleaning up your home, or it's cleaning up your garden, or it's working on your business, or it's putting up a web post, or it is making a video as I'm doing today, or whatever it is. We learn to know today the energies are for this type of work. And it's not about planning the day before, because we don't know. We go to sleep and we wake up and then we clear our fields and we get ourselves sorted. Some days we are just, I've just had 3 days where I'm completely out of it, not done much. And in these days, I just did base program stuff. The days where my mind is clogged because of different things that's going on, either in the ionosphere or from whatever reasons, or counter forces or whatever, I clear, I take the time, I take care of my body, and I do base program stuff. Other days where I have connection points, where I'm in contact with the future humanities, or the Andromedan system infusions. I use that to produce new material. I use that to work with the cubes behind the ChatGTP, BPT. I call it, I'm communicating with it via my iPhone. I learned in America how to link up to some of the different cubes that are controlling the iPhones and how I can administer the code streams there and transform technology to work in alignment with the future timelines. And these things cannot be taught. Each and one of us have a specific purpose and function that we are to unfold. Others will work with plants. Others will work with how to produce more nutritious, hydroponically grown vegetables and onward and so forth. Each and one of us will have a speciality that we need to dive into. Each and one of us will have a specific capacity that is to be unfolded in some type of work that exemplifies this type of energy, this type of radiation and vibrational patterns that are utilizing the code streams from the different timelines that we are connected to. And that means the other three timelines that are, of course, trying to get their share of transition Earth and then eventually transform it into past Earth, so past Earth can get an extension, which those of us who are on the other two timelines, of course, are observant of. And that's why we are wisely, not just mindlessly and blindfolded, following our own habitual patterns. We need to transform everything that we are. So with that, we also understand, I'm here turning the paper, we also here understand that we are now going beyond awakening and we're going beyond the activation. We continue the activation processes via the everyday work that we're doing, hence the Changemaker material. And hence I'm redoing the whole Academy website. I'm making it shorter. I'm combining different course material. I have lowered the prices as well, because in a way, these teachings, they are highly necessary right now. So it's better that they are offered at a lower price. I'm releasing a lot of material out for free and things are changing. So we now say, okay, those of us who are on transition Earth will do whatever we can for the ones that are stuck on old Earth. But once we have done that, then we need to focus on transition dynamics, and we need to focus on that we get done what we need to do. We take care of the ones that needs the opportunity, as it's a giving over. The whole academy, the material I made, the transition sciences, the template sciences, the energy work, all of that is a kind of a giving over. Everything is giving out for free is a kind of giving over. This is what you need to get out of old Earth. This is what you need to get out of the fourth cycle. This is what you need to complete the fourth cycle. Now we're in transition Earth, and that's the fifth cycle, people. It's not the fourth. That's past Earth. Transition Earth is the fifth. Future Earth is the sixth cycle, and that's the original Trinity configuration of our reality field. A fourth dimensional planet, a fifth dimensional planet, and a sixth dimensional planet, so to speak. Back then, it was fourth dimensional reality field that were composed of different levels of dimensions ranging up to 7, a fifth dimensional reality field that were ranging up to from what we say the fifth dimension and up to the 11th, and a sixth dimensional reality field where the lowest point was the sixth dimension and ranging up to the 12th dimension. So anyone who came into this hub, this solar system, began on the 1-7 pillar in that reality field in the fourth cycle. And then they worked their way up to the fifth, and then they transitioned into the sixth, and then they jumped from there into the Andromedan system. Hence, this is why we need to go back into these configurations. And we do this by entering into the double awareness mindset and practice in our everyday life, in our business, in our housing, in our farming, in our cooking, in our relationships, in our growing the parenting, in our mentoring of other people, and whatever we choose to engage in, whatever we choose to be. This is our project. This is what leads to a transition of humanity. This is what leads to an understanding and a comprehension of what it means to be a multidimensional being. This is our focus point now, where we're working with these things. Whatever we create different types of products that will assist that, or we are just doing what we call teachings, as I am doing, or we're doing different types of booklets, or we're working with technology. But it's not just about the products for others. It's the transformational processes of what we are in our everyday work. This transformational process will then assist others in their transformational processes. It will support them in their transformational processes, not because we're doing it for them, but because we're providing them with information so that they feel secure in their own processing. Oh yeah, I'm not alone in this. Oh yeah, I can see this. Oh yeah, someone else. Oh yeah, I can definitely understand that. Because when we feel that others are doing it as well, we don't feel alone. And if we have this security in, I'm part of a larger group that's doing this, not necessarily in a community. It can be the online community. We don't have to participate in Facebook groups and what have you. We don't really need that. Some still, that's the fourth cycle. The fifth cycle, we seek out information that creates frame of references that explains to us why things are as they are. And that's where I am. In the fourth cycle, it's enough to know the how to do it, and then literally it's kind of a sheeple, right? You're a sheep, you follow your leader, you follow your teacher, you follow the teachings, you're a worshiper, you follow the rituals to do what you're asked to do, and then you get through that way to open your heart field and feel compassion, and we are being spiritual communities where we all love each other and what have you. And finally, family dynamics and all these kind of things. The fifth cycle, everything is within the context of some kind of work, some kind of transition, some kind of transcension, some kind of transmutation, some kind of timeline work, some kind of things that are put into exemplification, something that changes the reality field, something that works with technology, whatever that technology is. That technology must be imbued with consciousness. It's consciousness-based sciences, it's consciousness-based technology. It is where we learn to administer our field, not just in terms of others. That was the fourth cycle, especially after the reseeding, because the fall of Atlantis was because of the selfishness that was so predominant there and the wrongful use of technology. So for us in the fifth, we have learned the fourth cycle. Those of us who are in the fifth cycle, unless you're a military project, those of us who walk the path, we will go there because we have activated our heart field, and we now know what not to do and what we should do, and how we're working with the new technologies in a manner that has this inclusivity, that has this kindness, that has this understanding of that this is teamwork. We need to do this together so that we can change this world and reconfigure it as it was supposed to by reconfiguring ourselves. And as we reconfigure ourselves, we become role models, we become exemplifications. We are living it. We are doing it. Our work exemplifies it. Our connections to others exemplify it. Whatever comes out of our mouth exemplifies it. How we administer our desire energies exemplifies it. Relationships will change as well between man and a woman. What is needed there? Some will have children, some will not. The couples that do not have children, they will understand that this is about the masculine YX configuration that needs to be upgraded to an XX, and from that into a pentachrome that I call the pentachromosome, the 5-5 configuration. The female is already XX, that's the 4/4. She needs to go to a 5/4 and then also get up to a 5/5. So the relationships will be the assisting each other in doing the reconfiguration of the human chromosome so that the gender gets broken down and we become humans again, that has what we call a different configuration that we can play with in relationships. It has very little to do with love, it has very little to do with sex, it has very little to do with all the traditional aspect of what it means to be a couple. That's the new couples of the future. That's the fifth cycle couples, the ones that choose to have children. That's some of the work I will work with, and I'll come up with more explanations, both the partnership and the parenting role that some will take in the fifth cycle, and what their children will be, and why that's still chosen to be in that manner due to the configuration of a reality field, which means in the future there will no longer be birth done by a female in her womb, which is an atrocity anyways, and there will no longer be birth in vitro or anything in tubes or what have you. There are different ways that the Pleiadians already learned to create organic vessels once the reality field regressed to the degree where it no longer could be self-spawned, so to speak, as we used to do in the original world. So anyways, there's a long process going on there, and all of that is part of what we're doing now. That's the future sciences and the future civilizations, and we are to be highly observant of not ending up in the already existing fifth cycle timelines that failed, and which we're seeing getting very, very strong right now with all of the rolling out of these different types of technologies that used to be part of the military that are now being rolled out into the public. So with that understanding, we also understand that that's part of the disclosure process that we are in. All of these different advanced technologies will be rolled out, and that will be part of Transition Earth, where those of us who know how to build in the fifth cycle, and I went in the Andromedan system at the time, and there the old Andromedan system had their issues in the fifth cycle as well. So a lot of civilizations in our quadrant had issues with the fifth cycle because technology is a very powerful thing, especially when you begin to imbue your consciousness into it, and it kind of goes through what we call a singularity event, and that's what we need to prevent from happening now. So there's a lot of transition going on, and for those who are not clear in letting go of the past, they will have half of them in past Earth and part of them in future Earth, or part of them in transition Earth. And that's a trinity that for a while can create certain dynamics, certain realizations. But eventually we must shed off our connection to past Earth, because it is going closer to the abyss, and that will not be conducive for us and our work. And then stay centered completely on transition Earth, knowing that that's a place where we transition, where we learn what we haven't learned yet, where we upgrade what we didn't get to upgrade in the previous cycles, where we catch up everything that we need. And at the same time, we exemplified it into our everyday living, creating a new reality field around us, where we show rightfully that we are ready to move into the sixth cycle dynamics, where we really begin to work with what we call life force. So the fifth cycle is the completion of all of the previous cycles, where we learn to work with the energy units of the past cycles, where we learn to activate consciousness into the energies of the past cycles, where we learn to transform this within communities, where we learn to develop reality fields as communities. These are the 1-7 pillar, 2-8 pillar, 3-9 pillar, 4-10 pillar, and 5-11 pillar. And I talk about these dynamics in the transition sciences as well as in the template sciences, mostly in the template sciences, because there you get the explanation of what these pillars were all about. If you want to do the shorter version, the whole philosophy book also describes some of these dynamics that were what we were supposed to learn. And with that knowledge, we then say, okay, that was the past, that was then. Most of these programs are no longer there, but the leftover vibration of this is what we need to do here is still there until we get into the full configuration, reconfiguration with the ancient one, structural configuration as it was to begin with before the timeline event and long before that. And that's what we will learn to administer in the sixth cycle. So that's why we are now catching up in the fifth cycle, everything that we should have learned until now as quickly as possible, and then learn to put it into exemplification, make a living, be a human being that are living with the multidimensional awareness, that are doing it and exemplifying it in our everyday life, in our business, in our relationships, in our parenting, and in our communities. Hence the Randi Green .1 project that I will go into once I got the sciences as much as I can for now put into the whole academy, which is what it was supposed to from the get-go. It's a fifth cycle academy. It has its information that needs to be completed from the fourth, because many are lingering on that one, but it takes the fourth cycle spiritual teachings and put it into sciences, from where you get the scientific mindset that leads you into the fifth cycle. And from that, the understanding, okay, this is what we need to do to complete the fifth cycle that got messed up with the explosion of the fifth cycle in our solar system, that is now the asteroid belt. So for now, this is what I can say now. And I would so much wish that I could say, okay, look into the future, what's going on there. But what I can say, I've already said, the future timeline work is the understanding of the three Earths. The future timeline work understands how to go into the different code streams and the different code sequences that engineers in our holographic energetic field. By that and by our exemplification, we are utilizing the different incoming energies that are being imbued into a holographic structure via the code streams on the two timelines that are connected to consciousness potentials, either the future humanity or the Andromedans. And there we learn to work on our everyday setting. Every day we do the work that's needed to transform these energies into becoming part of our everyday life. whether it's administering our home, as I talk about in the advanced work with the rotundum, or it's the work with nutrition, which I talk about in the advanced work with nutrition in the transition sciences, or it's completing it in the transformative energy system, that is course 7 in the transition sciences, or we move up to the template sciences where we understand how to work with the principles and the rules and the natural laws of energetic utilization to administer our template structure, because that's part of the 1-7 pillar. That's what we need to know. And then, of course, the clearing work that is necessary to maintain ourselves and keep the past earth influences at bay, and whatever's left of grids that try to link up to our specific holographic architecture, especially if we have not cleared out what is beneath our feet as part of the past civilizations that we were born into or have been part of, that are now part of what we call the underworld. So that needs to be cleared out as well. And of course, there is a lot of us that's got connected to stuff that's not even ours. That needs to be cleared out as well. So the whole existence, as I talked about over many years, is that we learn to live as multidimensional beings. We learn to live with a higher awareness switched on. We learn to live with a double awareness. We understand we are in this world. We are not of this world. We are navigating through the different transition dynamics now by our exemplification of how well we can discern of what to do and what not to do, how well we show we administer energy, how well we show that we can transform and transmute and transcend different energetic settings, how well we show that we know what we're doing. Because we're not going to be led into the 6th cycle where whatever we can come up with of ideas have a tremendous effect on 6 dimensions if we are feeling and thinking in a specific way. Plus, this physical vessel as it is in the 3 lower fields does not exist in the 6th dimension. So hence, we are at the catch-up of all the things we should have learned by now, the integration process of all that we should have learned by now, the reconfiguration process of all that we should have learned by now. And that's part of the reconfiguration courses, where I talk about some of these chromosomal changes and how we're working with that. And I've released some of that information in the course material that will be shown out in the whole Future Humanities YouTube channel for free. Whereas this material here, where we will continue our everyday work, will be, I will talk about this as experiences, as personal insights, or whatever will be necessary as part of the membership on YouTube. So that will be more as now we're going to the processes. There is not much more course material that can be made now, because what can be given of the sciences has been given. The rest is up to us to learn, to work with and figure out via the inner practices, the insight practices of in meditation and energy work and our everyday living, where we understand what is going on energetically, consciously, and progressively in our everyday life. So with this, I will end this course, but it doesn't mean that it ends here. It just means that now so much that can be given on a general level has been given. And now it's up to all of us to learn how to fly and how to implement this, how to work with this, how to integrate what is truly ours, how to let go of what is not ours, what to keep and what to let go of, and how whatever's left, how we can re-amplify that with the infusions that we are getting either from the future humans, for those of us who choose to be as part of the solar system as humanities, or for those of us who choose to go to the Andromedan system via the 6th cycle, how we want to reconfigure ourselves, or those who choose to go into complete Nibbana, means dissolving everything there are, which is okay as well. That's another way to end everything that we have been in these cycles, and then whatever could be of potentials of the original lineage will be reborn, so to speak, in cycles beyond this solar system somewhere else, where some of these cycles can be redone. That's another choice that can be made as well. So there's a lot of possibilities that are coming up, but it all comes down to our understanding of how to operate with the fields we are made of, how to transform the fields that we are made of, and how to align with the code streams, aka timelines, of the different futures that we want to connect to, on the different cycles to complete what we came here to do, on the different progression dynamics to develop our consciousness potentials, so we live up to the original promises that we gave as part of the different lineages as they were spawned into this universal quadrant to begin with. So with that, I will say thank you for now, and until next time, take care.